What's up, my beautiful people? I'm back once again to deliver to you all some juicy revenge stories. Let's get in it, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheating wife gets wiped out in divorce. Found my best friend's wife's secret social media account. She was sleeping with one of our other friends. I told my friend about it. He just kinda shut down. A few weeks later, he told me never to tell anyone I knew she was cheating or that I knew about the account. I would casually ask him how the two of them were every now and then. Always great. Every time I saw them together, they were a happy couple. 9 months later, he confessed he had lost everything they had to a gambling addiction. A year before, they both had cars that were paid off. He had sold them and leased new cars. The money he made selling them, he lost to gambling. Their savings and 401ks were essentially gone. All lost on gambling. The condo they lived in was rented. They essentially had no assets. She immediately filed for divorce. They had no kids and similar incomes. Divorce was finalized without him owing alimony. Her cheating was never brought up. She got all the furniture and pots and pans. He kept his secret hoard of gold coins. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing it's at least $200,000 worth. Scumbag does $2,000 damage to my car. Steals my best friend's motorcycle while recovering from dental surgery. Gets whole life destroyed for years. This happened several years ago, TLDR at the bottom. But first, let's meet the cast. There's me, best friend, and of course the star of the show, Scumbag. First, a little background. There was this homeless, he wasn't truly homeless, scumbag who I was sheltering in my house while he was looking for a place to stay. I wanted to help him out and help him get back on his feet. He had been problematic for a while. He was crapping in a trash can, pissing in soda bottles everywhere, and lying to everyone all the time. He wasn't even good at lying. He was one of those pathological liars who couldn't tell the truth to save their life. And when he got a BB gun, he shot out my neighbor's window. This will become relevant at the end. The list of sketchy stuff Scumbag did could go on for days. But that's not what I'm writing this about, though it certainly does factor into the revenge. Now, on to the main event. While one of my buddies needed a ride to the train station, and I was too tired to drive, so I let him take my car and drive him to the train station. When he came back, my front bumper was on the ground, and he duct taped it back on. He claimed that he was T-boned at an intersection and injured his leg. He went to the hospital, faked his injury, and came back with crutches so I'd buy it. When I asked the police in the town he said it happened in, whom he said he had filed a report with, they told me no such event had been reported, and they had no clue what I was talking about. I later found out through my buddy who was in the car with him that he was doing donuts in a parking lot and hit a tree. So shame on me for letting someone drive my car, I know. It was a very stupid decision on my part. The cost of repairing my car came out to be $2,000, and I couldn't get insurance to cover it, so the repairs came out of my pocket. So I gave him the benefit of the opportunity to make things right, and said, alright, pay for the cost of the repairs, and I'll forget the transgression. He already had a minimum wage job, so I expected him to pay me every week until it was paid off. After 2 weeks, he stopped. So I took his PS3 and safe as collateral, and said I'll give it back when he paid me back, and if he didn't, I'd sell it to cover the costs. A few weeks later, my best friend who was also staying with me had his wisdom teeth removed. He was in a ton of pain. That dental pain is the worst. Scumbag said he needed to go to the store. He let Scumbag take the bike to the grocery store, but after a while he became suspicious. He called saying the bike wouldn't start. I drove over to the store he said he was at, and he and the motorcycle were nowhere to be found. The store was like 10 minutes away. We called him and said bring it back now or else we'll report it stolen. When he came back later that evening with a girl and made up a BS excuse as to why the motorcycle had 130 miles on the odometer, the way he told it made it clear he had no clue how mechanical odometers work. They don't glitch and jump ahead 130 miles like he said it did. My best friend would know. He's consistently pulling his bike apart and making repairs and modifications to it. I grilled him about the fact that he was never where he said he was. We deduced that he had rode the bike to his hometown to pick up his girlfriend and back, and lied about everything. That was the last straw that broke the camel's back, and a very bad mistake. My best friend and I were trembling with rage when he threw him and his girl out the front door to the curb. This is where the nuclear revenge begins. Scumbag was dumb enough to leave all his passwords saved on the laptop we loaned him while he was with us. We got his email and changed the password. Once you've got someone's email, you've got everything else by default. We got his social media accounts and financial accounts and reset their passwords too. It was hysterical seeing the flurry of password reset emails coming in. He knew we had him in the bag and was frantically trying to salvage his situation. He had opened a bank account at the local bank to deposit his paychecks from his local cashier job while he was in the area. We emptied the whole thing for a total of $2,500. Imagine my shock. I kept the $2,000 for my car and gave the remaining $500 to best friend for his troubles and having my back. We then sold his PS3 on Craigslist and split that 50-50. We eventually opened his safe. It was full of random papers and earbuds of no value. But it did have his debit card, and one of the papers had his PIN on it, which is how we emptied his bank account. In addition to that, while he was on his way out, I go to the store he was working at and tell his boss he won't be showing up this afternoon and to consider him to be quit. I explained why. The manager was cool about it, but told me he can't take my word for it. In any event, he was never seen at that establishment again. So sooner or later, that manager was going to have to take my word for it. But we're not done yet. We still have a social life to destroy. We hijack his Facebook and make all his friends hate him. We make posts about the crappy stuff he did. We make posts about him eating his poop. We make posts exclaiming his love for all manner of debauchery and degeneracy. We start petty fights with his friends lists in the DMs. We go onto their walls and say snarky, nasty crap. We turned everyone against him. And in the process of destroying his social life, a bunch of girls he abused who lurked on his page came out of the woodwork, praising us for taking him down a peg. A few weeks go by, and we get a package in the mail from him. Turns out he wasn't homeless and completely out of options like he said. Big surprise, I know. The package was mailed from his parents' house. It's an empty threat to sue me, overflowing with hilariously made-up lines and pages of screenshots of what we did to his social media. Me and my best friend are laughing our asses off reading it. He said he left town because the bills were too much. He never did sue us, and we even taunted his bluff with our new Facebook account. The reason why he thought this would fly is the neighbor threatened to sue us over the window he broke, and we paid for the replacement window. So he thought that the mere threat of a lawsuit would be enough to put an end to the revenge. I still have his lawsuit letter, because I like to read it for a good chuckle every now and then. I'm thinking of framing it on my wall as a trophy. Last I heard, he's completely destitute and has 0 friends, now that everyone knows how much of a terrible person he is. Even his parents got sick of his manipulative behavior. His girlfriend didn't take long to wise up and apologize to us. So what's the real lesson of the story? Protect the ever-loving crap out of your email, because that's all anyone needs to gain access to everything else you do and completely ruin you. Also, don't save your passwords on the computers of the people you're screwing over. Scumbag of a brother did everything to ruin my life, such as saying it was my fault my parents died, suing me non-stop, etc. It did not work out well for him. This is my first and probably last post ever, but I needed to get this off my chest. Only the people who were involved in court know about this, but most of them are already dead or sick. This is why I never talked about this with anyone since it happened 12 years ago. Before I start, I need to clarify some stuff. I am from Germany, so sorry for any mistakes. The school system is like this. Elementary school is from 1st to 4th grade, followed by middle school and high school, altogether 5th to 13th grade, and finally college or university. Since I got into middle school, I had a goal. I wanted to move to a foreign country and get a nice job there after studying something like business management. I set the bar very high because I grew up in a family of drug addicts, dealers, and abusive parents and brother. Because I had this goal, I always put pressure on myself unintentionally. I got to middle school by the age of 9, which was a year earlier than everyone. I got to school earlier since I could already read and write in kindergarten. By the age of 12, I had learned 3 new languages. English to an extent where I could easily talk to Americans and Brits. Japanese like a local elementary student. And Spanish so I could kinda talk to Spanish people. Fast forward to 13th grade. My life was hell throughout school since I got beatings at home for not being able to sell and cook drugs, and barely had any friends because of my clothes that always had holes in them. Even though I was close to suicidal, I never gave up on my goal and only had A's since 5th grade. I barely ever got B's. I had finished high school with a GPA of 4.0. Not sure if that's correct, I just know that I had the best possible GPA. I don't know how to convert a German GPA to an American GPA. I had finished university and studied business management. At this point, my parents had both died of a drug overdose, and the only person I pretty much knew was my brother, who was still an asshole. I never really talked to him, I just knew that it had something to do with sports in his career. Everything went like I'd always dreamed, except for the foreign country part. By 30, I had a wife and 2 kids, average income, and all in all an average life. I never was really happy with that because of the high expectations I had for myself. I tried to accept it, but I always felt like I threw my potential away. I fell into a deep depression when I was 33. My wife left me because of it and took the kids with her. And here I was again, alone, depressed, and suicidal. The only person I knew and was comfortable with calling was my brother, who I hadn't seen in a few years. I thought he became a down-to-earth guy because on the phone, he genuinely sounded like he was trying to help me. I was in debt, so I had to sell my car and take a train to the town where he lived. When I finally got there, he seemed like he was trying to be helpful. He even offered me money, which I didn't want to accept. He took me into his place, which was surprisingly big. How did he get such a big house? He never did anything for school. He'd always been an asshole. And all he did was think of sports and spend time with his friends doing drugs. I couldn't get that question out of my head, so I just had to ask him. The answer I got was, "With hard work, of course." Hard work? He never did anything. And I knew he hadn't done anything since I had last seen him. To confirm this, I asked his wife, to which she said he was just lucky. He had won the lottery. He won 2.7 million euros and did some lucky investments. A lazy, abusive piece of crap had more money and a better life than me. I couldn't get over this, but since he was being nice and let me stay at his place, I didn't mention it. After 3 months of staying at his place, he offered me a place in his company. I don't know anything about his company and about his line of work. Keep in mind that I was still depressed and desperate. I accepted the offer, and he intentionally gave me a task in the company that was extremely hard to complete, and the other workers warned me, but I didn't listen. I had screwed up. I destroyed a machine that would cost around 150K to replace. I tried to explain to him that I couldn't give him the money because I was in debt. He sued me and he won. My depression sucked me into a deep, dark hole further and further. After a suicide attempt, I got to a mental health clinic and spent a little over a year there. I was 35 when I got out. My depression wasn't gone, but they decided I wasn't trying to kill myself anymore. The first person I saw when I got out was my brother. He was waiting in the entrance area, and the first words he said to me were, "Can't get a decent job? Can't get the wife to stay? And can't even kill yourself? What can you do?" I was furious. I couldn't hold back, and I punched him in the face as hard as I could and broke his jaw. And when he fell on the ground, he lost a tooth. Can you guess what happened again? Right. I got sued again, and he won again. I couldn't pay the medical bills, so I got a loan. Everything seemed okay until I turned 38. I had paid off the loan, but was still in debt. I was relatively happy with life at this point, until the day everything was ruined again. My brother decided to pay me a visit. He greeted me with the words, "You thought I would let you off with the medical bills. You probably knew, but everything I did was a plan to make you kill yourself. You were the reason Mom and Dad died." Roughly, of course. I can't remember his words exactly. Excuse me? I was the reason? They were drug addicts, and I didn't want to have anything to do with them. I said something like, "This will not end well if you don't leave me alone. You already ruined everything for me. Isn't that enough?" He told me that he would not leave me alone until I would kill myself. He brought up my kids again, and my wife, and everything that had failed. I had lost it and started to beat him. I beat him for about 5 minutes when I realized I had done something terrible. He was laying in a pool of blood, and I panicked. I called the cops on myself, and a few weeks later, the court decided what my punishment would be. Since I gave myself up to the cops, my time was reduced from my original 13 years to 10. They knew I was probably going to kill myself as soon as I got into prison. They put me in a cell that was supervised 24/7, so I couldn't even try. These 10 years opened my eyes. I had been a selfish asshole to my wife and kids, and always thought about my stupid career. I was the reason all this had happened. I was the reason my wife left me and my life seemed worthless. As soon as I got out, I started to search for a job, and even though I had been to prison, I found a job soon. It had been 2 years since I got out, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I do not regret killing my brother one single bit. Not only did I help myself with it, but also his wife who got his money and everyone he had oppressed and assaulted over the past few years. His wife was happy he wasn't there anymore because he was beating her constantly. I have below average income, but a loving girlfriend who knows I was in prison, but doesn't know the circumstances. I live in a small, cozy apartment, and I'm happy to live my new life. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, you know the drill by now. Subscribe if you're new, and if you really liked it, maybe give it a thumbs up and a share. Anyways, I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.